everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I'm Renee and I read a lot. And today I'm doing another Get Ready With Me while I talk to you guys and review the latest book that I just read. And this time I'm doing it a little bit trendier, a little bit more on the nose. I'm not as behind the times. We're going to be talking about Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. And I'm going to start doing my makeup while I talk because otherwise I am going to forget. And as always, everything will be listed in the description box below that I used to do my face, so I don't have to stop and interrupt what I'm talking about to tell you about every single product that I'm using. Maybe I'll start giving products like a star rating like I do with books so that you can see if I liked it or not. But it's safe to say that most of the products, if not all of the products that I have now, are ones that I really like, since it's rare that I get a new product in Italy, and I threw out all the ones I didn't like before moving. So they're probably pretty good if I brought them all the way from Mississippi to southern Italy. But regardless, Divine Rivals. If you're anything like me, you've probably heard about this book a few times here and there on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. It comes up as a recommendation. And I've seen it, and I actually have it written down in my book journal in like my to be read section, my TBR, if you will. I have it written down there literally twice because of how often it's been recommended. And I noticed recently, as I was looking on the TBR, my TBR, for what I wanted to read next, it's written by the same author who wrote the duology that I just read and fell in love with, Fire Enchanted. Fire Enchanted? It's a River Endless and a Fire Enchanted are the two. It starts with a River Endless. Rebecca Ross. Same author. And I talked about that a lot here before. Essentially, it's a Scottish-inspired fairy tale-esque fantasy story, and I loved it, and I loved it so much. So when I was looking on my TBR and I saw that I had something written down twice, it's the only thing that I've written. Whoops. It's the only thing that I've written. You're making me laugh.
Me?
Yeah. Because you woke up when I dropped my stuff. It's the only thing I've written down twice, and not only that, but it's by an author that I've read before and I loved, so I thought, that's the one. And it was on Kindle Unlimited. Like, that's the trifecta, I think. There's no better recommendation for me than one where it's on Kindle Unlimited, so I don't have to pay extra money for it. I have it written down twice because of how often it's been recommended, and it's by an author I like. Done. Say less. I don't know what that was. Don't laugh at me. My husband is sleeping here on the couch beside me, so he's just casually offering little giggles or anything when he listens in. But yeah, basic overview of this story. For this part will not have spoilers. I'll warn before there's any spoilers. I don't intend on putting spoilers in this review, but if I do, I will make sure it's clearly marked and sad and annotated so that you don't have to worry watching this. You have time to like go pause or skip ahead if you're doing the dishes or whatever. Like, that's when I put on YouTube videos. So I assume I can't be the only one. But for now, no spoilers. And unlike other times when I've done this, I am a little bit more organized, and I did write down points, and I do have my notes app up on my computer. So I'm even gonna put in little cards and everything. So, plot overview. So the basic plot to this story is that it's a historical fantasy romance, right? They live in a historical world. I'm pretty sure it's, oh geez, I wrote this down. Let me go get my book journal and I'll come back to you. Okay, I'm back. I'm pretty sure it takes place in 1915, and I'll get into that more in the world building, but imagine 1915. But a fake version of 1915. Like, it's an alternate reality universe of 1915. Our two main characters, Iris, our female main character, and Roman, our male main character, are both writers for the same newspaper, and they're competing for a columnist position. So I'm not going to say enemies to lovers because they're never really enemies, but I'm going to say rivals to lovers, which in some respects I like better because they're never super out for each other. While they're competing for this columnist position at this newspaper, there's a war going on between two gods, and Iris's brother has been sent out to the war, and she writes him letters, but she doesn't really know where to send them, and he's not writing back, so she sticks them into what she thinks is an enchanted wardrobe in her room, and the letters just disappear. And they disappear, and she doesn't know where they're going. She just assumes maybe they're going to forest, maybe they're going whatever. She's kind of writing as an outlet for herself until one day she gets a letter back and it says, it's not forest. And you can kind of guess where it goes from there. And that's kind of like the brief overview of like the plot as a whole. Short, sweet, no spoilers, to the point. They're connected through magical, what they think is enchanted closets where they can write letters back and forth. But Iris doesn't know who she's writing to, and Roman is keeping it a secret from Iris because he doesn't want her to stop. Things escalate from there. Our characters. We have two main characters. Iris, 18. She is the female main character. She is very, very, very emotionally intelligent. She is very smart, very driven. She definitely has one of those types of personalities where she takes care of all the people around her. She's very caring. She grew up very poor, and she works really hard for what she has. She is a very, very, very compelling female main character. I can see where she makes all of her decisions. She's very emotionally intelligent. She's very mature. She's very strong-willed, strong-opinioned, and she stands up for what she believes is right, which we love that. I thought that she was a very compelling female main character, and I really enjoyed reading about her. Our main male character is Roman, and for whatever reason, I always want to call him Ronan, but it's Roman, like the ancient peoples of Italy. He's a little icy. He's 19. He comes from a very wealthy family. He comes off a little bit standoffish and stubborn and icy at first, but he has a very tragic backstory that he blames himself for. So he does have a reason for that. But he is also, he's one of my favorite main male characters that I've read in recent memory. I really enjoyed his character as well. He's very caring. He's very smart. He's very good at what he does. He's very attentive, extremely strong-willed as well. He's a really good match for Iris in terms of their personalities and their interests. And he's very smart. He's also very emotionally intelligent for a 19-year-old, especially. And I really liked his whole arc that he develops in the book as well. We do have like side characters, like Iris's mom features heavily in the first part of the book. Her big character trait is that she's a bit of an alcoholic, especially since her eldest son went off to war and maybe isn't as present being a mother as she once was. There's Sarah, Iris's friend at the newspaper. She really wanted to work in a museum when she was a little girl, and now she's working at a newspaper. And honestly, I'm here for Sarah getting her museum ending. There's characters that I'm curious to read more about that maybe in the second book will come back, because the second book for this is not out yet. It comes out in December. If I'd known that, I would have waited to read it, but c'est la vie. I don't want to spoil anything, but towards, the middle to end of the book, we meet a girl named Addie, who's a fellow journalist, and she is really a very good friend and very intelligent and likable. We meet, I want to say her name is Marisol. Yeah, we meet Marisol. She is a 33-year-old. She has a wife named Keegan and supports Iris and Addie, and she's got great energy. She's very fantastic, her and her wife both. We have Iris's brother, Forrest, who I don't want to say too much about because that will lead to spoilers, but he's also a very interesting character that I would like to read more about in the second book. But we have a whole cast of interesting characters. The characters are great. The characterizations, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you've got good characters, you've got a good book for me. And the characters were chef's kiss. I love them all. And again, Roman and Iris start out as rivals, and it's a rivals to lovers arc. So if you like enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers, you're going to really like their arc, I think, and their romance, which is why the next section is going to be romance and spice. The romance, 5 out of 5. Absolutely perfect. I didn't think that there was any unnecessary tension. I really enjoyed seeing how they came to terms with their feelings for each other and how they developed over time. And there was never any unnecessary, dislike or hatred or whatever, that prevents them from getting together. That was one of my big problems with a book like The Fourth Wing, is that I felt like there was a lot of really unnecessary tension in the second half that I didn't feel like came to a good resolution. All of this tension is really good. Their whole love story is just so pure and so just absolute. It's like 12 out of 5. Like, they are the perfect example of a couple of rivals to lovers where it's done so flawlessly to me that I was reading the whole time like so anxious for them to get together. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. However, in terms of spicy scenes, there are none. It's not that kind of book. It's very much more focused on the characters and the world building than the plot, and the spice is maybe like 0.4 out of 10. It's really not there. It's really not emphasized. It's a bland dish. But I don't think that takes away from it. For me, personally, it did not take away anything. Their romance was still so beautiful. I love them together. I'm in love with both of them together. I need them to stay together. It was perfect. I can't say enough good things about it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Go read it. In terms of world building, I think in this book was done really well. A lot of times I feel like fantasy can be a little difficult to start, and it intimidates me to actually sit down and start a fantasy book or a fantasy series or fantasy duology, because I'm about to have to get into it and learn a bunch of made up names and a bunch of made up places and learn how the like magic system works and how everything, you know, it's all going to be different because everybody's looking to do the most with it all. I thought this book was absolutely perfect in the way that it handled its world building. I'm pretty positive it takes place in a alternate reality version of 1915. They write on typewriters, and it kind of seems, you know, like oldie time period, because instead of dating, they court and whatever. And there's like still arranged marriages and whatnot. But they use like a completely different system of months and days of the week and everything. But the only hint that I have why I think it's 1915 is because Iris's brother is 15 years older than her, and Iris is 18, so he's 23, and he was born, it says, in 1892. I'm pretty sure. There's a part where she writes down his birthday because she's trying to track him down, and she mentions that he's born on like some day of some month that doesn't actually exist in the real world, but the year is 1892. And I'm pretty sure that that's because this book is set in alternate 1915. Otherwise, that was a really interesting, like, small detail that you definitely could miss. And it checks out because her other book that I've read, A River Enchanted, that book is set in, like, alternate reality, old Scotland, where it's not really given, like, a distinct place. It's just like older Scotland, and a lot of hints that that's where it's located by the way that words are spelled and whatnot and what they're eating. But it's like an alternate reality where like they have magic and it's a different world and it's not any real place, you know, but so it checks out that it would be the same thing where this isn't necessarily set in any real place or in any real timeline. It's a fantasy version of 1915. Otherwise, setting the year as a year where it would make sense for them to have typewriters is a really interesting, like, little point that I'm pretty positive she must have done that intentionally. You know what I mean? Like, she would have known when, okay, if I'm going to write that it's 1892 when he's born, that would make it 1915 in my universe. That would be, like, really random of a year to pick. If you wanted it to seem like it was a completely fantasy made-up world, then pick a different year. You know what I mean? Don't set it in a year that makes sense. And it's also likely English, Scottish, UK-ish, because she says mum, not mom. But it's never given a real place because it's a fake world, right? It's a made-up world building because they have gods that are sleeping underneath the world, and there's a magic system involved. The magic system is never really well fleshed out, but I don't think it needs to be. It's just kind of like some stuff is enchanted, some stuff is magic. I really liked the pace that the world building picked up in because it's really easy to get into. You don't have to be frightened when picking up this book. There are some books like The Priory of the Orange Tree where it really throws you in with a bunch of place names, a bunch of settings, a bunch of people, and it's like you kind of need an appendix to keep up with it all. This book, absolutely not. If you understand the way that the world works, our current world that we live in, I think you're going to find this easy to pick up on how their world works. You know, she unveils a lot of the mythology and stuff in the pace of it was really, really good in terms of unveiling world building and what's going on. And you learn a lot about the mythology of their gods that are sleeping and the wars of the gods and whatever and how it's affecting them. So it's paced really well. It's set up really well. You don't have to be afraid to get into it. You don't need to like sit down and be like, okay, I gotta read for the first 50 pages and nonstop so that I make sure that I don't forget everything I've learned by the time I need to use it again. You know, you can not be afraid when picking this up of the world building. It's done in a really, really, really well way. For the plot, I also thought that the pacing was fantastic. There was never times where it felt slow. The action came at really appropriate times. The romance came at appropriate times. You know, the pacing kept me very in it. The pacing of it, I would say, was excellent. And the book is divided into 3 parts. So if you want to pace yourself that way, that's also really easy. I love when books are divided into parts. That always gets me hype, especially when the end of a part leaves on a good note. Ooh, because then I feel like you're getting, enough action throughout however many pages a book is. In this case, 353, every 100 pages, you're kind of getting a new block to focus on, you know what I mean? And I really like that. I think that that's a really appropriate amount of time to hold most people's attention. Held mine really well, at least. So the pacing was really well done. And the plot itself, again, I'm going to say this for the 4,000th time, was really well done. There was enough substance, because sometimes in a fantasy romance, it's mostly romance and not very much fantasy, or mostly fantasy and not very much romance. Yeah, I said the two. I think that this balanced the two extremely well. I think that I was getting romance when I wanted it. I was getting fantasy, world building, gods, magic when I wanted it. I was getting, side characters and little hints of things that are going to come up in the next book throughout the plot that I was just like, this has romance and it has plot that both keep me engaged. It is really, really rare for me to find a book where I'm interested in both the plot and the romance, and I'm not kind of skimming through one to get to the next, And that happens a lot with fantasy romances, especially, where I'm like, okay, in this book, I feel like the writer does a really good job of fantasy, so I'm really into the fantasy, and then I'm kind of skipping through the romance to get back to the fantasy, or vice versa, I'm skipping through the plot to get back to the romance. I was equally invested in both, which is so rare, and I loved it. I absolutely, oh my God. The plot was great. There was plot. There was plot about with the columnist position, with Roman's family, with Iris's family, with the Gods' War. There is a lot of plot, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. I'll give you that one for free. And that brings us to our ending, which does, in fact, end on a giant, extremely emotional cliffhanger. I was like, no, this cannot end here. This cannot end here. And when I tell you I was running to Amazon to get the next book, the way that when I was 13 years old, I ran to Barnes & Noble with my mom to pick up the next Twilights whenever I finished the first one. And the disappointment I felt when it was not out, I was like, are you kidding me? Because sitting on this cliffhanger for the next, because it comes out in December, sitting on this cliffhanger for the next 5 months is absolutely going to be miserable. It's going to be all I think about. Thank you, Miss Ross. I am deceased. I will be sending you the bill from my therapist. So overall, I loved this book. I think that this book is absolutely perfect. I cannot wait to read the sequel. I am absolutely on the edge of my seat to read the next one. I have it pre-ordered. I'm ready. I want it in my Kindle the day that it comes out. I want it the minute it comes out. I'm not waiting an extra second for this second book. I absolutely loved it. 5 out of 5 stars, easy. Absolutely easiest 5 stars I've ever given. I would recommend this book to anybody who likes any form of enemies or rivals to lovers, for anybody who enjoys fictional historical romances, for anybody who enjoys books. Normally I say you should read, in your genre, books that you like. I think this is one of those books that even if you don't traditionally like historical fantasy romances, you might surprise yourself with this one because it was so good and so well written. If you like other books that are similar, in my opinion, I would say it kind of has, if you liked The Serpent and the Wings of Night, the Crown of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent, or if you liked the Fourth Wing series by Rebecca Yarros, or if you liked her duology that I liked, River Enchanted, then I think that you are absolutely going to love this, and you will not be disappointed at all. And what do you have to lose? Especially if you have Kindle Unlimited, then it's free. Go read it. You shouldn't be listening to me talk. You should be reading the book, because it's that good. I didn't bring down another lipstick. I guess I'll just reuse this one. I really can't be all that bothered, to be honest, to go upstairs to get another lipstick. But yeah, I'm almost done with my makeup, and I'm almost done talking too. So honestly, that worked out really well timing-wise, considering I didn't test this, obviously, and it takes me a different amount of time to put my makeup on every time I do it. Shout out to me. I win this round. Yeah, and in overview, basically, this is one of those books that makes me remember why I love reading and makes me want to read more so I can find more books like this. So if you're, not a crazy person and you don't read 150 books halfway through the year, and you have to be a little bit more choosy with your books, this is definitely one that I would choose. It absolutely blew me away. I was not expecting it. My only regret is that I didn't get into it earlier. So with that being said, turn off YouTube, go download this book, go read it. If you have read it, let me know your thoughts. The only thing I could see you waiting for, and this would be very valid, is if you don't want to sit on the cliffhanger at the end of book 1 for forever, and you want to wait until December for when the second book comes out, I get that. I kind of wish that I had known what was going to happen. I never read reviews or anything before diving into books because I want to formulate my own opinions. And this was one of the ones that I wish that I had at least looked at when the second book's publication date was, because maybe somebody could have warned me that I would be sitting on the world's worst cliffhanger for 5 months out of my life, and I could have been spared that pain. So this is me not passing on that trauma to you. This is me saying that's the only reason why I think you should wait. However, if you want to read it now, want to reread it in 5 months with me, because it is a duology, so it is going to be finished on the second one. Or if you really would like to just torture yourself and sit on the knowledge of what happens at the end of book 1 for 5 months, you can do that with me too. If you have read it, please let me know what you think. If you haven't read it, please go read it and let me know what you think. And in any case, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give a like if you liked it and subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.